let's take a look at duck wings. And what really got me excited about duck wings is I was walking around on a trail by the marsh by the edge of San Francisco Bay, and I came across this big pile of feathers in the middle of the trail. So somebody had been snacking. And sitting in the middle of it was this. And we'll be really getting into this today because we're going to have a duck wing that we can move around and kind of look at all these different parts. So this will be a very cooperative duck. What you folks don't get is the smell. It's getting a little bit ripe, but unfortunately that doesn't come through the Zoom. So we'll take a look at this, and I want to use this as a tool to help you really see and understand these duck wings at a higher level. Right. What I did in my journal is I really geeked out with it and just had fun sort of mapping in all the parts of this. And we'll show you kind of how I went about doing like everything like, oh, wow, that just looks, scary. This actually was easier to do than you would think because I used a bunch of tricks and hacks that helped me get this onto paper. You might notice that, it seems to be just about life size. I wonder how he did that. All right, I'll show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just a little bit of anatomy of the duck wing, and then we are going to jump over to the real duck wing. I've got some diagrams, and we'll look at how this all works on a all right. So let's go to the screen share right now. And I am going to first go to I'm going to I'm trying to experiment with allowing you to see both when I draw and when I and screen things at the same time. But first, let's just go straight up with a keynote presentation. And Melinda, are you folks seeing a picture of a duck?
Yes, we are.
All right, that is most auspicious. All right, here is my duck. And this is a mallard, and it is flying along. And what I want to do is to show you some key aspects of its plumage. And to do that, I'm going to be drawing on the screen here. So let's first see if this works. So on my wing here, I am going to divide the wing into several different parts. There is this outer part of the wing. Hold on, my screen is, there's kind of a big delay. I'm going to see if I can turn off well, I'm going to let me try this again. I'm going to stop this share. Sorry, I'm still in the process of working out how to kind of get all of my presenter screens to cooperate for me. I'm going to try to stop my video here, and so that that's not taking bandwidth, and then see if my screen share is a little bit more fluid. Let's try that. Are you still seeing the duck?
No, I just see you. You've turned off your video.
Oh, all right. Let me try this again.
Are you trying to share your slideshow?
Trying to share the slideshow, but I'm seeing if I turn off my personal camera, if that then makes things just a little bit more smooth with being able to draw. Are you now seeing the?
We see the duck.
You see the duck again. Okay, good. So at least duck is back. And let's try this again. So the duck has a shoulder. The duck's shoulder is up about in here. That then goes down to a little duckly elbow, which is about here. That then goes to a beautiful duck wrist, which is right at this bend in the wing, on the leading edge of the wing, and the duck has a little hand. These feathers here are called the primary feathers, and they fan out from the tip. They're all attached to the hand. So those are the primary feathers. There is a second set of feathers, the secondary feathers, and those feathers attach into the bird's forearm, like that. So there's two parts. We have the primary. The primary feathers, that's this whole outer part, and then the secondary. And you notice that those are attached to different bones. The secondary all attached to that forearm bone. The primary feathers all attached to the bird's hand. If we take a closer look at the secondary feathers, you'll notice that the first few of them are these ones right here, look different. They're longer, and they are often a different color. Those are called they're secondary feathers, but they get the special name of being called the tertial feathers. So you can think of primary, secondary, tertiary. That's where tertial comes from. And they often on ducks are longer, they are pointed, and so often they'll be a little bit more camouflaged than the rest of the wing. Ducks will often have in their secondary feathers these iridescent feathers. When that happens in the secondaries, that's referred to as the speculum. So this bird has a speculum, and that's just this cool little reflective part in the secondary feathers. And then there's one other little detail here. I want you to notice on the back of the bird, this pad of feathers right up in here. These feathers attach up in here, and then they are in some of the longest ones are underneath, and those come back down this way. And then there are shorter ones that attach on top of them, and shorter ones that attach on top of them, shorter ones that attach on those. But generally attaching right up in here, above the bird's shoulder blade or scapula. So those are referred to as the scapular feathers. So scapular feathers, we have the primary feathers, we have secondary feathers, and we can divide the secondary feathers into your regular secondary feathers and your tertials. So primary, secondary, and then our tertials. Another thing to notice is that the upper part of the wing is covered up here, part of the secondaries, with this big zone of rows of smaller feathers. And the primary feathers, same thing. The wrist area where these primary feathers attach is covered with these small feathers. So you can actually see that there's a row of small feathers here, and another row of small feathers here, and a big pad of feathers that are on top of them there. Let me get rid of, clear all this. And you can see those feathers that are up on the top leading edge of the wing, those are called the covert feathers, and they cover up the bones and the meat of the bird. Also, because this area in here and in here is a little bit thicker, if you were to take a cross section, if you were to kind of cut through this part of the wing right here, you'd find that this area up in here is thicker because it's got it's got bones, it's got muscle. The back part is just a layer of wing, and that gives kind of in cross section the wing this cool airfoil shape, which if you get into the dynamics of flight, ends up being an important part of developing lift in flight. So these covert feathers cover up that front edge of the wing. And this is a diagram of a folding mallard wing. And first we're going to look at this in the diagram, then we're going to go and take a look at it in the real bird. The scapular feathers, whoa, come back. Actually, I'm going to do this in a slightly different order. I'm first going to jump over to this. This is a decoy, not a decoy, but a stuffed taxidermied bird. And what I'd like you to do is take a look at it and see if you can determine for yourself what are the primaries, the secondaries, the covert feathers, and bonus points if you can pick out the tertials, bonus points if you can pick out the scapular feathers. So first take a look at it on your own. And now I'm going to help. You ready? So, oh, come back. How do I do this? Oh, yeah. Here I go. So you got the primaries and the secondaries, right? So these are the secondaries, these are the primaries. On the secondaries, you've got the covert and then the regular feathers here. You've got the primaries and the primary coverts. So here's the coverts on the primaries and the coverts on the secondaries. These feathers back here, or these feathers right back here, those are my tertial feathers. And then we get into the rest of the secondaries. And that leaves this V of feathers right here on the back as my scapular feathers. And you'll notice that some of these scapular feathers, they have got a little bit of a dark margin right in there. All right. that is breaking out that duck wing. So because we got that, then this next one will be easier. So we're going to do the same thing on this. Pick out first primaries and secondaries, then primary coverts and secondary coverts. On the secondaries, can you see the scapular, not the scapular feathers, the tertial feathers? There's no speculum in this one. And finally, can you pick out, can you distinguish the scapular feathers from the tertials? Let's see how well we did. Well, first, let's talk about those scapular feathers. All right. Here we go. The scapular feathers on this are this wonderful, nice scalloped zone right up in here. That's our scapular feathers. And so it's got bigger ones that attach all the way up in here, and then these smaller ones attach. So right up in here is our attachment zone, and it's this big pad that flops over the top edge of the wing. That means that these feathers here these are my tertial feathers right in here next to my secondary feathers. Secondary feathers with a long flight feathers, they call those remiges, and the coverts up in there. The primaries and primary coverts. That one go better? Finally, if all that feels hunky-dory to you, I'm going to show you one additional thing. If you look really carefully, there's a few little feathers, long feathers that are lined up right here. Those feathers, actually, all the rest of the stuff in this area, those are all primary covert feathers. But these three feathers that are sticking down, those actually are not attached on the, are not attached to the hand bone. If I were to get in here and with my X-ray specs, I would see that this bird has a hand bone that is right in here. And it also has a separate little thumb. The bird actually has a thumb in this area here. And these little feathers here attach to that bird's thumb. Those are the bird's thumb feathers, also called the alula. So I'm going to clear my drawings again. So let's back up for a moment, and we're going to see if you can now spot the alula on those other two ducks. So can you spot the alula here? You'll notice that the alula, come back. The alula here is lifted off. It's sticking out right here. These are primary coverts. These rows of feathers here, these rows of feathers here. But that's the alula sticking up above them. And can you find the alula here? Find those 1, 2, 3 feathers coming out from that inflection in the wing. So I hope that within these sort of wing in flight positions, this makes these make a little bit more sense. All right. So I meant to. Yeah. All right, now let's take a look at what happens to these feathers when the wing folds. In my diagram here, you can see that you've got, first take a look at that upper wing and see if it makes structural sense to you. And then notice as the wing folds how, let's first just focus on the secondaries. The secondaries start off kind of wider, and then they get increasingly tucked closer and closer and closer to each other until finally they're in a tight little narrow group and can tuck underneath the tertials. Now let's look at the primaries. The primaries are a big, broad fan. And as that feather, that wing closes, that fan gets narrower and narrower and narrower until it lines up and tucks underneath the tertial feathers. Let's now go to, I'm going to share my video, and I'm going to spotlight this for everybody. All right, here's my bird wing. And just sort of anatomically, I'm going to take my thumb and forefinger and put it over the bird's elbow. I can feel the bird's elbow right in here. I can feel the bird's wrist right up in here. And so its hand bones, I feel them right through here. All right, so elbow, wrist. So if I straighten this wing out, a little bit ripe here, but beautiful. But let's check this out. So here I have my tertial feathers. See these long ones that stick down here? These are my tertial feathers. I don't have any scapular feathers on here. The bird plucked those off. I think these are a few of the scapular feathers that are left here. But you can see secondary feathers and secondary coverts. The last row of secondary coverts has these white tips on them. So these are all secondary coverts through here, the blue part and the white part. These are my primary feathers, my primary coverts, and look at this cute little alula, right here. Those are the bird's thumb feathers right there. So see how that is, it's its own little unit. Now, as the wing, when the wing is open, sort of trying to preen my feathers a little bit here. When the wing is open, the primary feathers make this big fan. Now just keep your eye on the primaries as we collapse the wing. Watch the shape of the primaries. See it getting narrower and tighter, narrower and tighter, narrower and tighter, narrow and tighter to this little strip. See that? How they all line up in this closed wing now. Boop, 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 boop. So the tips of those are lining up on top of each other. There's one feather that's not wanting to kind of get with the program here. Let me help it out. There we go. You see that? Nice and narrow. Those secondary feathers, they go from this big broad thing, those stack together tighter, 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 tighter. And then they can tuck up underneath those tertial feathers. So let's see if you can see how there's a little bit of them sticking out here, but they're really kind of hiding here underneath these tertial feathers. And also notice how the tertial feathers overlap on top of the wing here. So these feathers that are important for flight are all going to wrap up underneath the tertial feathers that are going to help protect the bird wing when it's raining and snowing. You have to keep your flight mechanism together. You have to keep your flight mechanism from getting destroyed by the storm. So that's what's going on here. In order to do this picture, how did I do it? I'll show you my secret. What I did is I got the wing to a cool position where I could see all these different parts, and it would, if I have it too far out like this, it's not going to fit on my page, something like that, that's going to work. And then what I did is I just put it on top of my nature journal like that. And I traced it. So let's do this together. What I do is I'm going to just get myself a little, I can hold it down with one hand and kind of come in here, and here's the point of one of these tertials. Here's the point of another tertial. So I'm kind of making a little landmark for myself. And this edge of the wing comes down here. These are these feathers that, well, I want you like that. There we go. And I can do other really cool things with this. So you see right in here where this little line of covert feathers comes in, I'm going to put a little dot where that is. I'm going to put a little dot where the tip of the alula comes in. I'm going to put a dot where the alula starts. Here's another row of these greater primary coverts. They come into about here on the wing. So I'm putting a little dot there. I can do other really cool things. Watch this trick. You see this little point here in the wing where the white starts? I am going to hover my pencil above that and then move the wing and come down and make a little mark. Then I put the wing back. Now I'm going to hover above the bottom of it and come down here. So that is going to be kind of in there. And then I put the wing back. The tip of that is going to go to here. I hover above it. And I come on down. So I now know I've got a little bit of a white wedge somewhere about in there. And let's do that with where the primary coverts come out here. So I can just sort of hold this thing up here. Oh, let's get this. This will be a useful one. Look at this. See how the secondaries come in here to this point here, and then they go up? Let's get where that point is. And there. And now, you see how I am saying, but that's cheating. You should do this all freehand. Well, you can if you want. there's going to be plenty of freehand stuff going on in this drawing, but what if I were just to, to get some of this thing blocked in? You'd say, well, it wouldn't be cheating if you were taking a ruler and measuring these and then putting that down. But well, if the ruler's not cheating, then the duck wing's not cheating. And scientific illustrators have been for years and years and years. They've been, anything that works. Oh, look at this. Here's where the edge of these coverts come in. I want that little point there. So this cuts around there. Well, look at that. You see how much? Oh, it's pretty pale on your screen, but you can still see what I'm doing. I'm intentionally doing this lightly so that when I draw on top of it here with my ballpoint pen, all those pieces are going to kind of come down right where I want them to. Now look at this. This wing, you see these feathers? I'm going to try to get this at an angle where you can, yeah. There we go. You see there's a whole series of feathers that line up very nicely on the back side of this wing. What I do is I'm going to take this wing, get my wing all lined up nice and neatly here, and I am going to draw down here through this feather. My next feather tip is coming here. My next one is coming, what I'm doing is I'm kind of, my pencil is pushing this wing out of its way as it's coming down here. Nice little piece. So, and then there's this other one that's up in here. So look at this. I've now made this, I'm just kind of come along this edge of this feather, this edge of this feather, this edge of this feather, this edge of this feather. I've got those back edges of those feathers. Now, the tips of them are a little bit squared off, a little bit squared off here, a little bit squared off. Okay. Then they're kind of, they're a little bit less squared off there. This one's a little bit more pointed. And then here is the leading edge of that wing. And I get all of those pieces now just lining up so nicely. And how easy is that? And there's one more that's just a little bit shorter in there. So I let my bird wing do most of the work there for me. And as I start to draw on these feathers here, I can even put in a few little kind of notches as if it's kind of slightly worn. Isn't that cool? And that's how I got that. So it's like advanced tracing, right? Let's just play with some of the secondaries for a moment. and the tertials here. So on my tertials, I've got this first tertial that starts, it's going to come down to about here. So I have a big feather that is going to come here. I'm going to kind of give you just a sense that it's got a few little kind of frayed edges.
Jack, while you're drawing the tertials right now, Danny's wondering what the tertials feel like. Do the shafts of the tertials feel thicker in your hand than the primaries?
Oh, that's a really good question.
We
No,
can't touch
these feel lighter and looser. The primaries have very stiff shafts. You can actually see the shaft of this outer one right there. Look at how thick that is. And then on the tertials, look at these thin shafts here. So think of these as a light covering over stiff flight feathers. It wants this light covering to contour over the back. Really interesting question. I like that. So here is my So I started these tertials with the one that is closest to the back because I draw all of this one. And then as I draw on the next one, I know where to stop because I've already drawn the one above it. Now for these ones here, here's all my secondary feathers, and they just line up just nicely along here. And I can get in there and count them if I want to. You'll see in a moment when I'm putting in a little bit of color. Very often that's really not even all that necessary. Because when it's all together like this, how many secondary feathers am I looking at in that area there? It's hard to say, especially at a distance. You see the sort of green wall with a little hint of some edges between things. And so finding something like this is just such a wonderful treasure. What I'm actually going to be doing when I'm done with this is bringing it back out to the landscape and letting it decompose with the rest of its feathers. But I feel like I just get to dance with it for a little while. I want to kind of take it home and kind of honor it and learn from it. It's a beautiful, beautiful little piece of duckness. I want to add a little bit of color to this just to sort of show you, like we've got this cool kind of iridescent looking zone. And how do I get that? I'm going to put a little bit of watercolor onto this bird and show you my approach. And then what we'll do is we'll take this wing and we'll put it onto a duck that is, oh dear, only 10 minutes left. So I'm going to do this quickly. So how can you draw this to look iridescent? Well, I'm glad you asked. What I'm going to do is, as you look at this, I'm going to just rotate it. And notice sometimes when it's in bright, you're getting bright yellow green. Other times darker green, black, right? Some angles, a little bit of a bluish cast, but mostly lighter green, translating to emerald and then going black at the tips, right? When it gets a little bit turned down like this, you notice the big portion that was green is now black. So with iridescent colors, it really just depends on the light angle. So I'm going to go from emerald and light green And I'm going to put in, I'm going to start with just some really bright light green. And then add in some more kind of bright emeraldy into this. So one of the things that makes things feel iridescent is when there are bright, clear colors. Let's zoom down on this a bit. No, we can't. Let's zoom down this way. Right. So I've got these sort of fairly bright, clear colors. And we'll let this dry slightly. Want it a little bit damp when I do this next move here. But I don't want it puddly. I have a color on my palette called Perylene Green. And what's neat about it is the green color, but it also goes to an extremely dark, almost black value. So I'm going to mix this up fairly thickly. And coming here along this edge. Because the thing that will kind of make part of this speculum really stand out and feel as if it is glowing is the contrast between the dark that I'm now putting in and that glowy color. See that? It's starting to feel like it's just got a little bit of shimmer to it because I've got those bright, vibrant colors, and then I'm letting them go really dark. If you don't have Perylene Green, that's okay. I could use any number of other dark value things. But something that's fun about this Perylene Green is just that it will give me my nice dark, and still when you kind of see it up in other areas, you go like, oh yeah, it's still green. Then for the other feathers around that are not iridescent,
Jack, could you slide your paper up just a tad?
oh, thank you so much for catching that. There is there are these tertials have a little bit of a white line down them, so you see when you get those tertials that are not iridescent next to those iridescent ones, it makes the iridescent ones pop out more and feel like they're more iridescent because there's something next to them that doesn't have that. This dark I'm using here is primarily Bloodstone Genuine. It's a color from Daniel Smith. And that's how that happened. Add one other little wrinkle to this whole duck thing. Now, understanding duck wings is great, but now let's take a look at a few ducks that are sitting around on a pond. And you'll say, wait, Jack, this was a kind of a dirty trick, because when you see this next move, let's see, where is that? Here I go, escape from this. So how does the wing look on the duck? Right. So here's the wing on a flying duck. We see all those little parts. Now let's take a look at that. Sort of remember the structure of the wing. So what am I looking at when I see this? Let's go back again. Here it is. And here it is. What happened to my wing? Whoa. Okay, you're thinking it's like, wait, this makes, there's no correlation here. I've got all these parts of the wing and I understand the structure. And then I see my duck. Okay, well. Okay, on this guy here, let's just take a look there on the back. And I want to point out the scapular feathers on this duck. The scapular feathers here, you see them starting with smaller things, and then the scapular feathers get bigger and bigger towards the back here. So you actually have some long scapular feathers right in there. All right, so these are your tertials, here, here, and here. And then these are scapular feathers coming around on the back. Let's clear the drawings. So notice those scapular feathers arching from the back. Now, what we're seeing here is scapular feathers in this area here, small and getting bigger and getting bigger and getting bigger and getting bigger. And so there's my zone of scapular feathers. And then I see sticking out from underneath those, I'm going to switch colors here. Let's go for blue. I see tertial feathers. All right, this is a tertial feather. Here's a tertial feather. All right, here is a tertial feather. And I see sticking out underneath that also is part of some primary feathers. So there it is for the far wing. The primary feathers for the wing on the side of the duck that is closest to us is, let's switch colors again to orange, is this structure that is sticking up here. So the primary feathers, if I were to kind of bring in the leading edge of this around, it is hidden under all these feathers here. It's tucked up underneath the scapular feathers, underneath the tertial feathers, And I have then a little bit of that sticking out the top. In addition to that, what is this? Let's use a different color. What is this? Those are breast and flank feathers here on my duck that cover up the front edge of the wing. The wing is tucked down here underneath all of those breast feathers, and then the scapular feathers pile on top of it. Some of the tertial feathers stick out below that, and my primary feathers stick out below that. So imagine being a duck and needing to keep your wing protected. This is an amazing wing protection system. How are you going to damage these flight feathers? You're not. The storm howls around, and you are still able to migrate on the other side of that. Here it is in a more kind of classic profile position. First, notice how far up on the side of the duck those breast feathers come. And then I have on top of that, tucking in here, my scapular feathers. On top of that, or tucked in below that, are my tertial feathers. You see a tertial feather in here and another tertial feather in here. And then hiding underneath that, kind of ending right in there, let's go for a different color again. Let's do blue. I have a little hint of some primary feather that is sticking out like that, and then about the same lengths as these tertials. So as the duck is swimming around, you're not going to see a whole lot of this structure. Then you're asking, then why did we spend all this time trying to learn how to draw the wing of the duck? Well, a couple of reasons. One, when the wing duck stretches, when the duck flies, there's all sorts of poses and things in which the wing pops out, and now you understand the wing. In addition to this, if you understand duck wing, you understand swallow wing, you understand finch wing and warbler wing. So the lessons that you can take from duck wing, you can apply to all the rest of the birds that show you their wing. Because I had a nice little duck wing, we could kind of really get into the nitty gritty of that. And then also you're able to, when you look at the photograph, if you know those parts of the bird, you can then begin to pick out like, oh, okay, so those are a few of my tertials. Otherwise, you're looking at the back of the duck here and going like this doesn't make any sense to me. There should be these little parts that I see. So on a duck that is resting, you have, well, let's start with this one. So on this duck that is not quite going to sleep yet, you can see the breast feathers down below. Those are going to pile up higher. So those start low when the duck first kind of tucks its wing in. And you can see the parts of the wing underneath there. Right? If you're looking underneath the wing there, we have right here, those are tertial feathers. I have secondary feathers in here. This whole part up here is my secondary coverts. And these are my primary feathers sticking out here. This pile up here on the back, those are my rows of scapular feathers. Breast feathers tucked along the bottom. Now, my duck decides it's going to take a little bit of a siesta. And there, it tucks that little duck head in. And now I see scapulars, I see some tertials. I might see a little bit of my primaries sticking out. Some ducks, though, they have the back scapular feathers. This one doesn't have it, but you'll see again on some ducks, these back scapular feathers will be really long. And so you'll have scapular feathers that will then be coming down over this, kind of doing this sort of a thing. And those are then also obscuring more of the tertials. And then you've got your primary feathers. Sometimes you just sort of see a little hint of the primary feathers sticking out the back there. So take a look at this. Take a look at this. It helps to know that the black bar on the side of this Eurasian, not green-winged teal. This is Eurasian teal because it doesn't have that big prominent white bar in this area here. This black bar here is the edge of scapular feathers. I see a little bit of secondary feathers in there, that green. And these edges here, those are part of my primary feathers. And those primary feathers, you can see them continuing right back there. But then there's this whole beautiful sheet of scapular feathers coming down and blocking your view of a lot of that wing. This is the green wing teal. It looks a lot like that Eurasian one, but you see that little white stripe on the side. Check out the scapular feathers on this beautiful bird. Check out the breast feathers. Wow. So in simplifying this to myself, I might think of those scapular feathers as being in 3 rows. Here's row number 1, small, bigger, bigger. Row number 2, small, bigger, bigger, bigger. Row number 3. Now here, I've got great big feathers. And that black bar, again, is the start of the edge of the scapular feathers. So that's that whole zone right in there. Really cool. Here's primary feathers sticking out here. You see 1, 2, 3, 4 tips of those. So I hope that this approach, this strategy, can help you understand duck wings, and that you can now look at a duck and make sense of it. So the cool thing about duck wings is that you don't have to draw the duck wing. But if I led with that, then you wouldn't have paid any attention. You wouldn't have learned all those cool things about how the feathers overlap. And you're like, this can help you with, like, this can really help you drawing your sandpipers. This can really help you drawing your sparrows and your finches. Just what you're going to be doing is the big trick that would be doing to kind of change this into something like a finch is that these tertial feathers, instead of being big, long things that stick out beyond the edge of the wing, the first one is going to be very short. The next one is medium sized. The next one is longer. So we'll just kind of go back to this cam for one moment. If you were drawing a, uh, a warbler wing, a finch wing, you're going to have basically the same thing going on. You're going to have all those coverts, all right? You're going to have, so you're going to see that this is going to look very similar. I'm going to have a zone up in here of greater coverts. I'm going to have a zone of secondary feathers that sticks down from that. So the size of the covert zone is not going to be as big. Your wingtip is going to stick down below that. You'll have an alula up in here. You'll have primary coverts in there, and then primary sticking down there. But check out what the tertials do on, say, warblers and finches and sparrows. It's 1, 2, 3. First a little one, and then a medium-sized one, and then a big one that's the full size. And these often can have pale edges, so you'll often see this kind of a pattern where you'll have these pale edges on those tertials. And then it's a whole pile the same length. Right, so those ones all parallel are these, all those secondaries coming in there, where the speculum was on that other bird. Here's my primary feathers. I'm going to use that same trick that I did on that other wing, and look at that. There is a bird wing. So you see the relationship between those. Big change on the tertials there. The secondaries are not going to occupy as much real estate. I hope that this was a useful workshop for you, everybody, that we got some strategies that you can use to help you with ducks. My recommendation for your challenge is to now first start just by doing an image search or look through books that have photographs of ducks in them that are swimming around, and look for ones where the wing is all covered up, and see if you can understand what is covering up the wing, and see if you can see any hints of the wing sticking out. And then start to look for pictures of ducks or geese where more of the wing is exposed. So when they first kind of come in, they're going to be, there'll be more wing visible to you. And see if you can pick out some different parts of the wing. Can you see tertial feathers on ducks? So first is just a part finding mission, and to be going through this photograph and this photograph, like I want to find tertials. Where are tertials on this duck? Like that one's got its tertials all covered up. What about that one? Oh, this one's got some good tertials. Look at the tertials on that. Right. So then you are going to make some labeled drawings of some of these ducks. So labeled drawings, and emphasize, don't get lost in the heads and these sort of things. Emphasize that zone going on the back and the wings, and really kind of geek out with it. Like really geek out with it, and kind of like get in there, like, yeah, you got this and you got this and got, okay, I got this. And these aspects of the wing and the hidden wing are going to your brain will go like, ah, I've got it. But it's really it's gonna gel by doing at least 5 diagrams of ducks in various stages of hiding their wings from you. 5. Can you give me 5? 5? All right, everybody who's going to commit to this, just give me 5. Show me 5. You going to do 5? All right. All right, so we've got some 5s out there. So we're going to do 5. You're going to give me 5 of these bad boys, and then label those drawings. And that will also really help you kind of think scientifically, like I'm thinking this part, thinking this part, thinking parts. And then what's going to happen, here's the gold of this. The next time you're out at a pond and there's a duck, and there you are, and there's a duck. You're going to look at the duck. The duck's back Instead of being like, there's a bunch of feathers and they got some lines on them. You're like, oh, I totally get what's going on your back, little duck. And then you'll be able to translate that to your piece of paper. Right? It works. Right? You'll be able to draw ducky backs. Right? And I hope that you had fun doing this. And thank you so much for joining the Nature Journal workshop today. What I'd like to do now is we're going to jump over to our community cam. And I will, if you want to share something, you can hold it up to the screen. If you don't want to be recorded on the community cam, then just turn off your camera, and you're safe from that. But I want to encourage people, enough people who feel comfortable doing so, please do share. We'll do some group sharing like that for a little bit, and then we will turn off the recording, and we will and then you'll have a chance to share for people who don't feel comfortable being recorded. Okay, but I'm now going to jump over to the gallery view and gallery. So I see Melinda's got something up. I'm going to jump over to the Melinda cam. Melinda, hey, good to see you.
All right. I'm actually going to share this on my document camera so you can see it better. Can you see my journal page?
Yes.
This is another opportunistic wing that was left for me. This was in my driveway. So I thought, okay, this is a whodunit woodpecker mystery. And at first I was really curious at who the predator was. And that's the reason why I put the kill. So I brought it into a little bit closer to the house so it could sit on the pavement. And then I sketched, it was pretty decomposed, but kind of mummified and dried. So it wasn't super fresh. So I sketched what I could see. I didn't worry too much about the detail other than it was speckled. Took measurements because I know that by taking measurements and accurate recording the crime scene, what you can find. And so I tried to measure whatever was there. There was one body feather. The tail feathers were telling. I can tell it's a woodpecker. And I really was going to look it up later, but I wanted to just, plot it all out. And then I went to some friends who were experts at tracking, and they were talking about, I had my own questions. My expert tracking friends gave me some suggestions, and I wrote those down. And we decided that we can't tell exactly what killed it because it left wings and tail, which might be a house cat. But because it was so decayed and there was still skin attaching it, we thought maybe a jay and crows were pecking at it, and it may have been a naturally died bird, and maybe the house cats were eating it. When they hit a window, they get stunned and they could be easy prey. So I was more interested in the bird because someone thought it was a downy woodpecker. And so I went to do a little research, and I thought, that is really interesting. If it's live, I could tell right away between downy, nuttall, and hairy. But with dead pieces, I realized that I need to do a little bit more research. So with the evidence that I found, I went to U.S. Fish and Wildlife's Feather Atlas website, and I put that link in the chat. If you scroll up, I put it in a few times. But so I thought, okay, this is a super fun mystery. So I looked at the tail feather. They give you pictures of these different birds and what the tail feathers look like. They give you the measurements. So I measured my tail feather, and it fit within the nuttall's range, and it looked more like a nuttall's instead of a downy or hairy. So that was one check for nuttall's. And then the body feather was another clue. It had bars on it. There were two. I only drew one. And I went to different pages, eBird Photography, Macaulay Library, to look at photographs of live woodpeckers. And I noticed that the downy and the hairy had clean body feathers, so no bars. And the nuttall's has bars. And so I didn't draw the whole bird, but just the part that was interesting to me. So another check for nuttall's. Then because I had the primary wing feathers, I took measurements and did a little sketch just so that, you can see which ones I measured. And my wing was 90 millimeters. And so I looked at the downy at 8 centimeters, and it was the third primary. And so I looked at the third primary on the hairy at 10 inches, and the third primary on the nuttall's was 9 centimeters just like mine. So I can tell that with these 3 pieces of data, I feel pretty confident. I'm not going to say exactly for sure. I'm going to say this is the evidence that I found, and here's my evidence of detective work. And from this, I believe that it's a Nuttall's woodpecker. And what this exercise did for me was taking this opportunistic, kind of gross and dead looking thing and really coming to it with this lens of curiosity, because this bird died, right? In natural, probably natural, it fed other animals, but what gift can it give us as nature journalers to understand more about birds? How often can you hold a Nuttall's woodpecker in your hand? Not very many of us can do that. So, you know, I study birds professionally, or did professionally, so I'm not really squeamish about finding dead birds. So it was really fascinating for me to just kind of geek out like Jack did today and just really dive into using your I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, you're developing a keen sense of observation, tapping into your curiosity and having fun, right? I'm learning how to have fun instead of just be serious from a lot of you that are better at having fun. And so by putting you know, these fun titles, and someone else was doing the check marks, you know, and so I made it, you know, fun for me. And so now I'm going to forever remember this experience, and when I look at a live a woodpecker, I'm going to view it with a different lens. So I
That
want you to go out and use your journal in this way.
this is, can I also say that something that I really respect and appreciate about your approach here, Melinda, is that you are demonstrating sort of Bayesian reasoning. You don't have this dichotomy right wrong in your head. You are looking for clues and evidence, and your level of confidence in your identification is moving on a slider, right? Towards, you know, with each little piece of information, you're either getting more confident in that that claim or less confident in that claim. Instead of that, you're even at the end, you're not saying, I'm not going to say 100% right wrong, but I feel fairly strongly confident that this is, and here's why. Here's my evidence for this claim. So your claim and your evidence are linked, and you are accepting a claim in proportion to the strength of the evidence for that claim. And that's the way we roll.
Yeah.
And, you know, if that, we often, people like to have things be black and white, right, wrong. But if you get used to, like Melinda's doing here, with just sort of saying, you know, forget right, wrong, but have either confidence or less confidence in things. Some things can be, you're going to be extremely confident in them, but just still kind of keep it on that slider and don't turn it into this crystallized truth thing. Right? So she'd still be willing to change her mind in the presence of other evidence, but she would be very surprised should that happen, right? So great Bayesian reasoning and wonderful journal pages. I like your idea of showing the different options and checking off the one that wins, right?
That was really fun.
I mean, what a great visualization of our kind of going through those alternate hypotheses, mm-hmm. and keeping track of your evidence. So this is also great, sort of in thinking of, sort of scientifically, about epistemology. The epistemology is the study of how do we know what we know. So she can make a claim, base it on evidence here, and that is a very powerful way of making decisions and figuring things out in the world that has a very proven track record of being successful and useful. That gave me chills down my little scientist spine.
I knew you would love it.
I loved it. Loved it.
This group.
And it's also just got that, you also are kind of representing that, you know, so by the way, for folks who don't know, Melinda is a trained scientist, right? She's a really solid scientist in her own right, but you notice her humility in going about this process of exploring the world. And science, when it's done right, has embedded in it that humility. So
Thanks.
thank you. Let's, if somebody else wants to share a journal page or something cool, let's go to Walters, and I will add you in. Hey, welcome.
Hi. Hi. I just wanted maybe for somebody that needs some inspiration in bird drawing, I wanted to recommend an artist to look out for. So his name is Dan Zetterstorm, and this is probably the most popular bird field guide in Europe. So this is a very, very good field guide. So Dan Zetterstorm has, you can look him up in the internet, but he has these books, and especially what got my eye. So I have this field guide for a couple of years already, how he does his landscapes, especially this great gray owl you can see. And Jack, the way you teach how to draw distant trees, very simple, but still you can get kind of the feeling of the pine forest. It's very, very simple barns, very everything keeps it simple, but very, very nice drawings.
Yeah, and also everybody just look at these. This really has kind of a nature journaling aesthetic to it. Just sort of showing what you can actually see in the field. Sometimes these are little silhouettes, but just gives you a sense for the living organism. Could you show us a few others? Oh, hawk owl.
No, that's not a
That's not the hawk owl?
Yeah, it is. It is hawk owl.
Ah. Oh, wow. Oh, see, yeah, look at that one where there's just, you have that snag and there's that hawk owl up at the top of the snag, and you kind of get that sense of kind of the light in the forest in the late evening and just all those little poses. This is such a more useful way. I got to get this book.
And it's got all kinds of birds, of course. It's got gulls, every bird of Britain, Europe you can possibly, and there are also some at the end here. There are also some American passenaries that migrate to Europe sometimes. So
nice.
They don't have that landscapes with them, but still.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, these are so inspiring. I've got. Hold on a second. I'm going to grab a book off my shelf.
So about the hawk owl, we actually this winter in Latvia, where I live, we got this winter. So in the start of January, there was the 9th sighting of it ever in Latvia. So I went there and I saw it. So that's really cool.
Oh, you got to see the hawk owl?
Yeah.
Ah.
It was the 9th sign. So we have this website where every bird watcher, if he sees something interesting, you can report it. So every other bird watcher sees it, and you can go and see it yourself. So now with my one of my friends who's a ornithologist, so he's a professional scientist, we are planning like kind of an expedition to go. We are going very close to the Russian border and searching for the great gray owl, hopefully. That has only 3 sightings in Latvia. So.
Oh, and there's one hanging out up there?
Well, we hope all of the 3 sightings are in the area we are going to. So, but it's really far. We have to drive like for 600 kilometers to get there.
Oh, but
I'm excited.
There's no road trips like bird road trips.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
those are the best.
Bring some snacks, get some good company, and Oh, that's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that book. Um, and I'd be really excited to see any owl sketches you do on your upcoming adventures.
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully there's like a very slim chance of seeing it,
but so worth it because like, and the great gray, it is such it is so solid and magnificent, and just it's got that incredible bulk to it. I remember when I was working on my field guide to the Sierra Nevada, I was trying to find that bird because I wanted to see it from life in the field, and could not find it. Could not find it. There'll be these meadows in Yosemite where it's supposed to show up, and you hang out in the meadow, and it, you know, it's supposed to show up there. And I was telling my a friend of mine about it who lived in the foothills outside of Yosemite, and at this point I was couch surfing, and I was kind of just going around trying to find as many of these critters as I could to sketch for my book. And he said, well, I know you've got you're sort of living out of the back of your car right now, and but why don't you can crash with us for a few days. And so I went over to his house, and he said, like, tomorrow morning, I'm just going to suggest you grab your spotting scope and go, the meadow right over there. There's some wonderful birds. You might just get up early and go for a walk. So I did, and I'm walking around. I think of great gray owl habitat as being, dense coniferous forest. And this was down in
pine
oak woodland.
forests, yeah.
And so this was totally off my radar, but what he knew, he actually had a nesting pair of great gray owls down there in the oak woodland on the edge of this meadow. And if you walked out of the meadow in the early morning, it just the great gray owls right there in front of you. And I absolutely lost my mind. Absolutely lost my mind. I wish you happy great gray owling on your upcoming adventure.
I watched the movie, the movie The Big Year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched the movie and there was the scene with the gray owl, one that they found in the forest. I gotta see that.
You got to see that. You got to see that. But also the hawk owl is just so, like, with those fake eye spots back here.
Yeah, you look through binoculars and then suddenly you think it's his head, and then suddenly he turns at you and you're like, wait, what?
That's so cool. So cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. That field guide, that is so useful. That's a beautiful way to make a book like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we're going to jump back to the community cam. And if you have, Eva and Gabe, did you guys want to share something? No, you're just waving? Okay, I'll wave back. Hi there. And Tracy, let's jump over to you. Hi there.
So, I'm working on this purple-headed finch that I saw in the spring and then intermittently through the summer. And I have a reference photo, but I didn't follow my reference photo close enough. And now I kind of have no idea what's going on. I look at the picture and I try to imagine how it turns, but I'm really kind of stuck on how I'm looking at the wing here where my pinky's pointing.
Oh yeah, the wing on the far side of the body.
I can tell that they're the primaries are stacked, but then I kind of lose focus as to what goes on, and I know I have to mirror this over here, but I get a little lost turning at this angle, primaries, secondary, coverts, where to put them. And I've just kind of been inching closer, okay, I got this figured out. I got this.
Yeah, birds so there's a couple of really interesting things going on here. Your bird is in a 3/4 view position. And so you're seeing, it's not a straight view of the back, but you've got more of the view of one wing, and then the wing on the opposite side is going to be foreshortened.
Yeah, it's all like like you can just see the feathers sort of stacked up, and I haven't like decoded what is what.
And do you no longer have access to that?
Now I still have the reference photo. I just didn't draw it in the same shape, so now I have to mentally like recalculate this feathers here. Am I able to show my reference photo?
Oh yes, please do.
Yeah, except I'm not sure I know how to do it, but
Just go to share screen at the bottom.
okay.
And then if it's open on your desktop, you can open it.
Okay. Do you guys see it? Oh.
Not yet. You're going to have to hit share. There you go.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So but I'm not quite at the same angle. His head is out further than mine, and it shifted. Like I realized like it shifted where everything was. And now I'm like, how do I'm more shortened than in this example here. I don't know if I have to foreshorten that more, I think. I can still have these stacked primaries.
Yeah, hold up your sketch one more time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what you guys are seeing. This is my first time.
Hold it a little bit closer to the screen.
Ooh.
Okay.
I don't know why my light's changing on me.
Yeah, Tracy, just hold it up close. Yeah, just hold it and hold it still so it focuses. There you go.
There we go. And okay, I'm going to, this is great. I'm going to do a little screen share here. Hold on a second.
Stop share, okay. Or do you want me to keep sharing?
No, I'm going to show you how I might envision that from. I'm going to go to a info. So I made a little kind of quick wireframe while that bird was up there, and I'll try to just sort of fill it in from memory. You had over on the sides here are going to be here and here are going to be your covert feathers, and so the covert feathers are going to be coming in like this, and they'll be probably, I would suspect that the ones on the far side are going to be, you're seeing a smaller angle on them because you're getting more of the side of this wing.
So I kind of have to make what I designated as my shoulder a little lower than what I have right now. Like this is, I don't know if you can see where the red is coming down here. Oops. There we go. Like that shoulder needs to drop a little, can't go the right way. Lower here.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to add you in on as a spotlight.
So I have my, like, I call them the shoulder feather, the sort of on the back of the neck and the shoulder.
No, that I think what you've got that can work. So what I'm thinking about, I'm visualizing kind of a center line down the back of this, and then you're going to curve around, but it will curve up more steeply on the far side than it does here. So things that are kind of.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And then on the side that is close to you, you have your tertial feathers, 1, 2, 3. And then the wing feathers, the secondary feathers that are kind of a whole pile of the same length like that. On the side that is facing away from you, you're going to be seeing those 1, 2, 3, and then kind of a whole pile the same length, but they're being foreshortened away from you.
Okay, I think
My alula would be in here, my primary coverts would be down in here, and then my primary feathers are sticking back across here. And then the primary feathers from this other side are sticking down underneath that.
I feel like I have too much space here. I sort of drew in some of those lines. Like, what's right here? Like, see, I guess.
So that's what you've got will absolutely work. Just depending on if this same bird, imagine this being the line down the middle of the back. If that line is pointing towards you a little bit.
I see how you changed the angle. Okay.
Then, but still a little bit of a side view, then it's going to be, instead of going sharply up here, it will be, you've got kind of more of a grace period in that. Then this wing that is close to you, here's my secondaries. This one over here, you're going to have more of that sort of secondary area. And then I'm going to have my primary feathers kind of tucking across here. Primary feathers can tuck across here. But as I'm getting more of the view on the back of this bird, then more of this wing comes into view. So I think just when I was trying to remember the angle of your bird, I, in my head, remembered it as being more turned towards the side. Yours is pointing more, it's not a full side view, but I mean a back view, but it's closer to the back view than what I remembered seeing.
Okay.
So there's more space here on yours because yours is rotated more towards you. So I think you're still in very good shape there.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it turns out in later, probably.
Yeah.
I had a question on the duck, which did not have to do with the wing, actually, but apart, like where the duck's tail and the tail feathers come out, does it actually kind of, I don't know, this is pretty light. Did the tail feathers split? So like one comes out this way and one comes out this way at the end, and there's nothing coming out of the center?
Yes, when they are, when the tail is fully fanned, when a tail is fully fanned, here's your base of your tail, and with what they call the upper tail coverts. On a very widely fanned tail, it's going to make a big arc here, and they will be coming out from imagine them sort of emerging from a point, sort of a line right in here. This so you can get this tail feather, and then this tail feather will be over here, and then this tail feather will be over here. So you can get, yeah, actually I think there was a photograph in where do I go to see that? I'm going to go to a photograph of the duck flying. And I think one of these taxidermy ducks will do this nicely. I'm gonna move this back. Okay, here we go. This one will work. And you'll see that the tail is symmetrical on either side.
Don't they have all their feathers? Do they have an even number?
Yes.
Okay.
And in my book on how to draw birds, I've got a little chart that actually kind of goes into how many primary feathers, how many tail feathers you should expect to see on different taxa of birds. So you can generally expect them to be symmetrical on either side. However, when they're molting, they will be dropping feathers out. All right. So yeah, you've got them sort of instead of being symmetrical on either side. You have if they're molting, you can have them. You might have they will tend to help the bird still continue to fly. When the outer tail feather on one side molts out, the other one will simultaneously molt out too. Well, no, that's actually no, that's not true. That's true for hawks. That's true for hawks. For ducks, they do what's called a catastrophic molt. So they will shed all those feathers all at once, and then they will regrow all kind of at the same speed. So yeah, you will. If we're talking about a hawk, you can often in a hawk that's flying around, you'll see a wing or in the tail that there will be a feather missing on this side and there will be a parallel one missing on the other side, because if a hawk can't fly for a while, then it dies, right? If you dropped all your feathers at once. But the ducks will shed all their flight feathers all at one time and then regrow them in an entirely new simultaneous batch, which means there's a period when they are on the ponds where they are flightless, which is pretty crazy. They often will actually get a different plumage in that time that is a little bit more camouflaged. So ducks, geese, and swans will typically have 11 primaries, and depending on, more in larger things like swans, they'll have 14 to 26 secondaries. Usually on the tail of a duck, you're going to have 7 on each side on the tail feathers. So that is total of 14. But on large swans and things, you can get up to 24 tail feathers.
Cool.
So on this one, I'm seeing.
So I'll kind of draw them coming out from underneath the undertail coverts. Is that what they were?
Yep. So here's the upper tail coverts here. The upper tail coverts are in here. And then those are all of your flight feathers sticking out from underneath.
Thank you. So the speculum is only like if they have pretty feathers on the secondary? Is that a simple pretty feathers?
Yes. Yeah, so this iridescent spot, that's the speculum. And that
it's not the name of the feather. It's not a different type of secondary. Yes. It's a different coloring on the
yes, that's right. So it is a characteristic that some secondary feathers have, and you'll see in ducks.
And does that range? As I was looking, I didn't know if it was just maybe angle that like this is blue. I've seen like a purpley and
Yep, it just like any iridescent color will change with the light angle. It will typically reflect back a certain section of the spectrum. So for instance, a mallard head typically reflects back green. But if you are looking at a mallard that is backlit, its head is black. If it's close to this, if the sun is kind of behind it, but not directly behind it, you'll see mallards with purple heads. When they get to about 90 degrees, where the sun angle is, so the sun would be, you're staring at the duck and the sun is over your left shoulder. At about, so the sun is about 90 degrees to the duck's position. At that point, the iridescent color changes over into green, to then being bright green when the sun is directly behind you. So iridescent colors will change how they look depending on the angle of the light from the observer, and the angle of the light to the observer.
that's cool. That explains why I spent a few summers in late grade school and middle school looking for purple-headed mallard ducks that I swear I saw that people told me did not exist.
Yep. I really kind of geeked out on this one day where I found there were, on one side of a pond, there were green-headed mallards, and on the other side of the pond, there were purple-headed mallards. And I remember being out there just going like, this is freaking me out. And then I saw one of the mallards from the purple side start to swim over towards the green side. And I said, well, let's see what happens if when this gets over there. And I start watching this duck and its head color changes as it goes to the other side of the pond. It was pretty cool.
It's interesting that black, like I should look this up for the kids in colors, but like black things are absorbing light, but iridescence is reflecting light. And yet it's almost always things that have black in them that are iridescent. So it must be a shiny black.
Yep. So if you take an iridescent feather, and right now the light is coming through the window in front of me. You can sort of see on my glasses, that's where the light is coming from. So it's hitting this and bouncing back to you green, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I, but from my angle, right? If I take these feathers and I look through them at the light here, as I look through the iridescent feather towards the light, I see a brown feather. Isn't that cool?
Cool.
So I'm now going to open this up also for folks who don't want to be recorded. So I'm about to turn off the recording. I want to thank everybody for being with us today, and I hope that this was a really useful workshop. Remember, you owe me 5, right? 5 ducky diagrams, and we're cool.